You know what's wild? A lot of people over 60 are walking around with blood sugar issues and have no idea. No symptoms, no warning signs, just a lab result that quietly says, hey, something's changing. And that's usually how prediabetes or type 2 diabetes shows up, not with drama, but with a number on a piece of paper. So today, let's talk about what those numbers really mean, what's actually happening inside your body, and why managing blood sugar after 60 is different than when you're 40. Because it is different. And this is where it gets interesting. First, quick basics, because this part matters. Glucose is just sugar. It's fuel for your cells. You mostly get it from carbohydrates, but your body can also make it from protein and fat when it needs to. Your liver stores some of it and releases it as needed. And the whole system is controlled by insulin, a hormone made by your pancreas. Insulin is basically the key that lets sugar move from your bloodstream into your cells. When everything works, your blood sugar stays in a healthy range and your cells get the energy they need. The problem starts when either you don't have enough insulin or your cells stop listening to it. In type 1 diabetes, the immune system destroys the insulin-producing cells, so the body can't make enough insulin at all. That usually starts in childhood or young adulthood, and people with type 1 have to use insulin. But that's not what most older adults are dealing with. What's much more common is type 2 diabetes. That's when your body still makes insulin, but your cells become resistant to it. So your pancreas has to pump out more and more insulin just to get the same effect. Over time, that system gets overwhelmed, and blood sugar starts creeping up. And here's something most people don't realize. High blood sugar doesn't usually cause symptoms right away. If your fasting blood sugar is 140 or 150, which is definitely in the diabetes range, you might feel totally normal. No pain, no warning, nothing. Symptoms usually don't show up until blood sugar gets quite high, often over about 180. That's when the kidneys can't hold on to all that sugar anymore and start dumping it into the urine. And when sugar goes into your urine, water follows it. So people start peeing more, getting thirsty, and feeling dehydrated. That's where the classic signs come from. Frequent urination, constant thirst, sometimes blurry vision, sometimes unexplained weight loss. If blood sugar gets really high, like in the 400s or 500s, people can feel sick, nauseated, confused, extremely tired, heart racing. In severe cases, it can lead to coma and even death. That's not common, but it's real. So short-term high blood sugar can definitely be dangerous. But the bigger issue for most people is what happens slowly, over years. Chronically elevated blood sugar damages blood vessels and nerves. That's how you get complications like vision problems from diabetic eye disease, kidney damage, nerve pain, or numbness in the feet, and trouble with wound healing. It's why people with long-standing diabetes can develop foot ulcers or even need amputations. It's also why diabetes increases the risk of heart attacks, strokes, and certain kinds of cognitive decline related to blood vessel damage in the brain. None of this happens overnight. It usually takes years. And the higher the sugar stays for longer, the higher the risk. Now let's talk about those numbers your doctor throws around. One is fasting blood sugar. If that's 126 or higher on more than one test, that meets the definition of diabetes. Another big one is hemoglobin A1C. That's the test that shows your average blood sugar over the last 2 to 3 months. If your A1C is 6.5% or higher, that's diabetes. Prediabetes is when A1C is between 5.7 and 6.4, or fasting blood sugar is between 100 and 125. And this is important. Prediabetes isn't a disease. It's a warning zone. It means your blood sugar is higher than ideal, but not yet in the diabetes range. The closer you are to the top of that range, the closer you are to diabetes. If your fasting glucose is 1.2 and your A1C is 5.6, that's barely over normal. It's something to watch, not something to panic about. But if your A1C is 6.3, that's much closer to crossing the line. Some experts even argue that normal doesn't necessarily mean optimal. Technically, normal A1C is under 5.7. But many researchers think the healthiest range is closer to 5.0. Not too low, but not high either. Very low A1C, like under 4.5, can actually signal other problems. So think of it like this. Around 5 is great. 5.5 is still normal, but maybe worth paying attention to. Above 5 cn is where we start calling it prediabetes. Now here's something that surprises a lot of people. In older adults, the goal is not always to drive blood sugar as low as possible. There is no single perfect number for everyone. The right goal depends on your overall health, your life expectancy, and how risky your medications are. For healthy older adults who are living independently and likely to live another decade or more, An A1C under about 7.5 is usually reasonable. For people with more medical problems or shorter life expectancy, a goal under 8 can be appropriate. And for people who are frail or have serious health issues, a goal under 8.5 may make more sense. Why? Because the medications used to lower blood sugar can cause low blood sugar, hypoglycemia, and low blood sugar can be dangerous. It can cause confusion, dizziness, and falls. Repeated low blood sugar episodes are linked to worse heart outcomes and faster cognitive decline. It's stressful for the body and the brain. So if someone is older and on medications that can drop sugar too low, having an A1C under 7 can actually be a red flag. It might mean the treatment is too aggressive. This is one of those things where geriatrics and endocrinology sometimes think differently. In younger adults, tight control can make sense. In older adults, safety and quality of life matter more. A blood sugar that's mildly elevated usually doesn't cause symptoms and takes years to cause damage. A blood sugar that drops too low can cause immediate harm. So the balance shifts. Now let's talk about treatment, because this is where people either feel overwhelmed or hopeful, depending on how it's explained. Treatment always starts with lifestyle. Always. That means physical activity, weight management if possible, and diet changes. For some people with mild diabetes, just moving more and eating differently can bring their numbers back into the pre-diabetes range. Exercise is one of the most powerful tools we have. It makes your cells more sensitive to insulin. It lowers blood sugar. It improves blood pressure. It helps mood, sleep, balance, and brain health. Even walking regularly makes a difference. You don't need to become a gym rat. You just need to move more than you are now. Diet. That is personal. Different people respond to different patterns. But in general, cutting back on added sugars and ultra-processed foods helps almost everyone. A Mediterranean-style pattern with vegetables, healthy fats, lean proteins, and fewer refined carbs works well for many people. Lower carb approaches can also be helpful, especially for blood sugar control. The key is something you can actually stick with. If lifestyle changes aren't enough, or if A1C starts out higher, medication may be needed. For many older adults, metformin is the first choice. It's been around forever. It's cheap. It helps your cells respond better to insulin instead of forcing sugar down directly. And most importantly, it almost never causes low blood sugar. That makes it safer than many other options. It even seems to have benefits beyond blood sugar, and researchers are studying it for potential anti-aging effects. There are also newer medications that can help with weight loss and may protect the heart and kidneys in certain people. Some of them are injections, some are pills. They can be great tools when used correctly, but they still need to be matched to the person. And they're not magic. Lifestyle still matters. Some people use continuous glucose monitors, little sensors that track blood sugar throughout the day. These can be useful for seeing how food, exercise, stress, and sleep affect your levels. And Medicare now covers them for many people. They're not necessary for everyone, but they can be eye-opening. Prediabetes is handled a bit differently. Most of the time, it's all about lifestyle. Move more, eat better, lose weight if that's appropriate. Sometimes medications like metformin or newer weight loss drugs are used, especially in people with obesity. But in frail or very ill older adults, prediabetes may not need aggressive treatment at all. It can take years to progress to diabetes, and sometimes it never does. In those cases, quality of life matters more than chasing numbers. So what should you actually do if you're worried about your blood sugar? Start by knowing your A1C and looking at the trend over time. One number matters less than the pattern. If you're in the pre-diabetes range, think about movement and food first. If you have diabetes, talk with your provider about your A1C goal and why that number makes sense for you. Ask what medications you're on and whether they can cause low blood sugar. And if you're not on metformin, it's fair to ask why. Here's the big takeaway. Diabetes after 60 is common. It's manageable, and it doesn't have to mean constant fear or extreme control. The goal is to avoid very high sugar that causes symptoms and damage, and to avoid very low sugar that causes immediate harm. It's about balance, it's about safety, and it's about living your life, not just chasing lab values. And this is crucial. You are not your A1C. You are a whole person with goals, habits, stress, sleep, and a life that matters. The numbers are tools. They are not your identity. If this changed how you think about diabetes or pre-diabetes, hit subscribe, because I break down health science like this every week. Real research, no hype, just useful information you can actually use.